Hi there, Phil, Head of Research at Moralis here, and welcome back to another Moralis Masterclass Series video. Today we're taking a look at the #1 EVM-compatible blockchain ecosystem that's also Polkadot connected. I'm talking about Moonbeam network, and today we'll be taking a look at DeFi specific to this network and exploring the power and possibilities available there. Let's take a look. And to begin today, we're going to start over on StellaSwap, selecting Launch App to continue. Here we have an option to connect our wallet. We'll be using MetaMask today, so we select that option. Here we're prompted to switch to the Moonbeam network, and we'll select Switch Network to continue. Now over on Moonbeam, we're holding a small amount of assets, but it really isn't that much in dollar valuation. So to get started, we'll want to send over some additional assets for our DeFi steps today. And here we are, diving right into that juicy DeFi content. Now, if you already feel over your head, it's probably because you've never funded a wallet with utility assets before. Oftentimes, the best way to find utility assets for a network is to head over to CoinGecko or CoinMarketCap and see what central exchange is offering the asset. Once you have even a little bit of utility asset, then you'll be able to fund the wallet from any assets you have on other chains. Of course, there's nothing wrong with continuing to fund it from a central exchange if you're more comfortable with that or haven't established yourself in DeFi in general yet. That said, this next step will show bridging assets from another network. So just keep that in mind if you're watching this and it's the first DeFi you've ever seen. Let's go. Now, to move assets onto Moonbeam, we're actually going to move over to a different exchange called BeamSwap. Over on BeamSwap, we'll select Launch App. Here we're going to be moving assets from a different EVM environment over to Moonbeam. With our wallet connected, after selecting the trade option and then selecting cross-chain, we can initiate a cross-chain transfer. This will allow us to move assets of value from a different network over to Moonbeam. In our case, we'll be moving assets from Optimism. When selecting Optimism, we also need to connect our wallet to that network. Once connected, we then need to select the asset we'd like to send and the amount, then selecting an equivalent asset on the destination side. This helps us to properly calculate slippage from one point to the other. Here we see that the slippage is less than 5 cents and therefore tolerable based on the steps we have in mind today. Here we'll select Start Transfer to continue, and then confirm. This approves the tokens for transfer on the origin network. Once approved, we're prompted to process the bridge transaction itself, accepting any fees that may be assessed in the process. Selecting Confirm. With that transaction confirmed, we need to wait a few minutes for the assets to arrive on our destination network. This is to ensure that all the confirmations have taken place both on the origin network and on the destination network. Also, you'll notice that it mentions Squid. That's because the Squid router protocol is being used here to process both swap and bridge transactions. Selecting the link brings us a breakdown of the process. Notice Squid router is mentioned, just as we said, and that the contract that we're using is labeled as one owned by the Squid router protocol. With our bridge transaction complete and with our wallet reconnected to Moonbeam, we're ready to process our first swap transaction while on Moonbeam. For our first transaction, we're going to secure some additional Glimmer assets. Glimmer is used for gas on the network, so it's important to make sure that we always have some on hand in order to perform additional transactions. Here we'll swap 20% of our supply for GLMR, or Glimmer as it's often called, selecting Approve USDC from the bottom to continue, and then confirm. Once confirmed, the swap option appears. Selecting it and then confirm swap prompts us to process a swap transaction, which we also confirm from our wallet. Thanks for sticking with us so far. So if you really feel underwater at this point, maybe things like slippage, liquidity pools, Ethereum virtual machine, all these things are just brand new to you. Well, I've got good news. That's why I created the Bull Run course. It's a perk available to our Moralis Money Pro subscribers. If that sounds like something you'd be interested in, I've got a link below to help you get started. Join Moralis Money today, and I can personally help you level up in this industry and in using DeFi and dApps similar to what we're showing today. Now, if you're totally on board with everything I've been showing so far and you just want to get to the next point, don't worry, that's coming up right now. Next, we'll head over to StellaSwap and swap for some additional GLMR assets. Here specifying an amount of 20 USDC for swapping. Then selecting Approve USDC from the bottom, and then Confirm. With the assets approved for spending, we're ready to confirm the swap, selecting Swap and Confirm Swap, and then signing with our wallet to initiate the swap transaction, and then confirming the gas fee as well. And with that swap now complete, we can see that our GLMR balance has increased. Our next step today is to stake some GLMR within a liquid stake derivative protocol. That's a protocol that's going to give us an asset in exchange for our GLMR that we can then put into DeFi over on Moonbeam. Now, DefiLlama mentions a liquid staking protocol known as Omni, and we know that Omni is using Bifrost on the back end. Bifrost, like Moonbeam, is a Polkadot parachain, meaning it has interoperability and security components that are shared with other Polkadot connected chains. In order to move assets between these chains, Polkadot parachains use the cross-consensus messaging format known as XCM, allowing for the functions we're about to describe. Bifrost performs two functions when staking. First, it wraps our GLMR, producing vGLMR, but it also moves that asset over to the Bifrost network. It then needs to be bridged back over to Moonbeam to be used there. We could go through all of these functions ourselves, but before we do, let's compare the rate that we would get producing vGLMR through the protocol to what we would receive when trading for it instead. Here we see that if we supply the protocol 40 GLMR, that's going to produce 35.9 vGLMR. This time, we'll head back over to BeamSwap, and we're going to compare the swap rate to the mint rate. Here we can see that the swap rate of 35.93 vGLMR for 40 GLMR is slightly larger than the mint rate. And so we'll proceed with the swap because it will also save us additional effort on bridging the assets back to Moonbeam. Here we select Confirm to continue. Selecting View on Explorer, we can view the transaction in progress. Okay, so if you're tracking so far, we've done a little bit of on-chain trading. We've secured some liquid stake derivative assets, which is essentially the same as staking our GLMR when we move from the native GLMR asset over to that staked variety of it, the one that's been moved from Bifrost back onto the chain that we're on. I know all of this gets pretty heady, and it has to do with how interconnectivity and bridging works in blockchains. This is exactly the type of thing that we explain in depth in the Moralis Money Pro community and that we discuss together nearly every week. That said, we're about to get even more advanced because what we're going to do next is experiment with on-chain leveraging. It's because of on-chain leveraging and other techniques that we're able to not only duplicate the functionality of traditional finance, but absolutely dominate it at every single turn. This is a perfect example of how cryptocurrency and blockchain is already changing the world today. So let's take a look at on-chain leveraging in action in these next few steps. Our next stop is Moonwell, a popular lending protocol over on Moonbeam. Since we're holding a few different types of assets, it should be easy for us to participate with at least a few of them, selecting the terms and conditions and connecting our wallet to continue. At the top, we'll select the Lend tab. Here we have options for lending GLMR with an impressive APY of 17.2%. Let's go ahead and secure some additional Moonbeam assets from the exchange we were just using in order to participate in lending with them as well. Here we'll select our USDC balance on the top side, specifying an amount of 20 again, and swapping for additional GLMR assets, selecting Confirm Swap to continue, and then confirm. With our swap transaction now approved, we head back over to Moonwell, specify an amount less than or equal to the amount we just swapped for, in this case 45 GLMR, and select Supply, and then Confirm Supply, and then finally Confirm. Now that we're lending assets on the protocol, we can enable these assets for collateral in order to take out a loan against them, effectively leveraging our position. Let's go through quickly how that's done. Here we select Yes and Confirm in order to enable our assets as collateral. selecting Confirm to continue. Since we're lending Glimmer within the protocol, we can also take out a loan. This protocol allows us to access a loan in the same asset, making leveraging very easy. While we've deposited about 40 Glimmer to the protocol, we're only going to take out a loan to the amount of 10. Now the borrow APR is technically lower than what we were promised on the supply side, but it's important to note some of the rewards that are paid out are in a different asset. So we would need to sell those in order to secure this position if we want to keep this open for a period of time. Let's proceed to borrow 10 Glimmer to demonstrate the process, selecting Borrow and Confirm Borrow to continue, and then confirming with our wallet to process the transaction. To wrap up our DeFi demonstration for today, we're going to provision some liquidity, starting over on StellaSwap, and to ensure that our amounts are mostly similar, we'll start with USDC and trade for both, using an amount of 15 USDC in testing today, and then selecting Swap, and Confirm Swap to continue. Then finally signing with our wallet to process the transaction, and then selecting Confirm. Next, we'll perform a swap for the same amount of DOT, using that 15 USDC test amount in order to ensure that the amount we receive is more or less the same, selecting Swap to continue, and then signing with our wallet again, and then finally confirming the fee estimates provided. Next, we'll head on over to BeamSwap to perform a liquidity pool provisioning, selecting Pool again from the top bar, and then selecting Add New, selecting Wrapped Glimmer and DOT, then confirming the range and the amount of each asset that we'd like to add to the pool, selecting Approve for both, and changing the amount to correspond with the amount we're holding rather than the infinite approval that we're prompted for. We'll select Approve for the other asset while waiting for this one to confirm, selecting Max again, Next, and Approve. With both assets approved for spending, we need to select the max amount between the two of the one that has a smaller overall value. In this case, that would be the wrapped Glimmer that we're holding, which automatically pairs with an equivalent amount of DOT on the other side. Finally, we select Add Liquidity from the bottom in order to complete the liquidity provisioning process, selecting Confirm to approve the transaction by our wallet. With our liquidity added, we've received confirmation within the user interface. At this point, selecting Pool and then Gamma V3 shows us a breakdown of our current position, along with the ability to withdraw the assets based on the current pool composition. And that concludes our steps on Moonbeam for today. So, a quick recap of what we did. First, we performed some swaps on chain, accessing a couple of different types of assets based on what we were looking for. Next, we lent those assets out using a different protocol, and then accessed a loan against our collateral. Finally, we took two separate assets and combined them to produce a liquidity position, where we have a claim to the liquidity within the pool that changes and earns fees on the basis of the trades taking place between those pairs. Now, if you're watching closely, you noticed one other thing. We combined assets that we traded for on a completely separate platform. That's an important axiom of blockchains. Blockchains exist as interoperability ecosystems. What that means is when you buy assets on one dApp or trade for them, you can take them over to another one on the same chain and use them in the same hour, minute, or whatever. They're available to you across any dApp which has been deployed to that chain. And one more thing that we know from studying EVM ecosystems is that EVM-compatible dApps can be taken and then redeployed to any blockchain that supports the EVM standard. This leads to a very robust landscape of different dApps that we can use across many of the EVM networks out there. But not all those EVM networks are connected to Polkadot. And that is what gives Moonbeam a special edge in this game. Well, I hope you enjoyed this look into Moonbeam ecosystem and exploration of a few of the different dApps available there. We'll see everybody in our next Moralis Masterclass video where we explore yet another blockchain. See you then.